Do you ever feel like your brain just won't stop? You're constantly thinking, worrying, and scrolling. Even when you sit down to meditate, I'm sure this is something that we all struggle with. Maybe what your mind needs isn't more motivation. Maybe it just needs a different rhythm. Growing up in India, I remember going to temples, festivals, and weddings. And beside good food, there was always music. Dhol, drums, flutes, DJs, and bands. At the time, I honestly thought it was there just to make everything feel grand. But the more I started reading about the spirituality, culture, and science, I realized something. And once I noticed that, I couldn't stop seeing the same pattern everywhere. If you look at every ancient culture that still exists today, every single one of them has musical instruments embedded in their rituals. Celebrations, wedding, healing practices, prayers. And I kept assuming it was aesthetic, just culture or tradition. It's an ancient technology because across centuries, cultures, and religions, specific instruments kept showing up for different purposes. Not randomly, not culturally, almost as if different civilizations with zero contact arrived at a same conclusion. To know more about this, I had to go back and read what our ancient civilizations says about it. Sanatam Dharma. Before science had names for neurons, before psychology mapped emotions, ancient India was already asking a different question. What if sound is not something we hear, but something we become? In Vedic worldview, sound is not entertainment, it is creation itself. The universe is described as vibration, a living field of rhythm and resonance. This idea is captured in the ancient philosophy of Nad Brahma, the belief that everything is sound, not metaphorically but fundamentally. Among the earliest texts, the Samveda stands apart. It is not read, it is sung. Every syllable is arranged into melody, every phrase into rhythm.
गणानान्त्वा गणपतिग्गुं like
उदाहरणाय अग्निसूक्तम्
अग्निमीले तत्तु हस्तस्वरः तत्र नास्ति तत्र मुखस्वरः अस्ति अग्निमीले पुरोहितं यज्ञस्य देवभृत्युजम् होतारं रत्नधातमम् इयमेव प्रक्रिया.
And according to tradition, this precision was not artistic, it was psychological. Because sound, when structured correctly, was believed to do something profound. It recognizes the mind. Modern neuroscience offers a parallel idea. Rhythm can regulate attention, repetition can reduce mental noise, melody can activate emotional circuits. But thousands of years ago, this was already being practiced, not as a theory, but as lived experience. The ancient text, Natya Shastra, takes this even further. It explains that sound does not just express emotions, it creates it. Love, courage, fear, calm, anger, peace, each emotional state called rasa, and it can be triggered through rhythm, pitch, and tone. This means a drum is not just an instrument, it's a controller of your emotional state. A flute is not just a melody, it's a pathway to calmness. A bell is not just a sound, it's an interruption, a reset of your mind. Even group chanting was seen differently, not as a ritual, but as synchronization. Many voices becoming one rhythm, many nervous systems aligning into shared reality, a quiet form of collective coherence. And this is where the ancient idea becomes striking. Because if a sound can alter an emotion, and an emotion can alter thought, then sound is not external at all. It is shaping what we call self. In Siberia, among the oldest shamanic cultures on earth, One instrument stands at the center of ritual life. The bubin, a round drum made of wood and animal hide. But its surface is not just decoration, it's a map. Sky above, earth below, and spirit world between them. For Siberian shamans, like the Evenki and Yakut traditions, this is not a musical instrument, it's a vehicle. The rhythm is not just for listening, it's for entering. Beat after beat, perception shifts, attention turns inward, the ordinary world begins to fade. In tradition, this is described as a journey, a passage through spiritual realms. In modern terms, it resembles an altered state of consciousness introduced by rhythm and repetition. The shaman doesn't play the drum, they cross through it. In North America, the Lakota tradition, the drum is understood as the heartbeat of the Mother Earth. Korea, the mudang, act as a mediator between the worlds. The drum, the buck, is used in ritual performances called gut. Across the continent in Scandinavia, the Sami people use their ceremonial Godavis drum in almost identical ways. In Chinese temple traditions, drums are used to regulate ritual timings, the beginning, invocations, and closure. In Japan, taiko drums appear at shrine festivals and ritual performances. In Siberia, a drum becomes a journey. In West Africa, a drum becomes a language. And in India, sound becomes a vibration itself, something closer to consciousness than music. Different places, different cultures, and different world. But this one strange pattern keeps appearing. Sound is never just a sound. It becomes a tool for shifting state, for entering something unseen, and for moving beyond ordinary perception. In the simplest terms, before we called it music, we were already using it to change the state of our minds. To understand it more deeply, here are the three archetypes of instruments I came across during my research. Wind instruments like conch shells, long horns, bamboo flutes, and didgeridoo. What do they share? Breath. Every wind instrument forces the player to regulate their breathing. Every controlled breath, we now know, directly regulates the nervous system. These instruments were used to call communities together, marked sacred traditions, and create immersive soundscapes that surrounded you completely. Resonant metal instruments, bells, singing bowls, gongs. Strike one and close your eyes. The sound doesn't just happen, it lingers, it decays slowly, it surrounds you. These were used for meditation, purification, and marking the beginning and end of rituals. This sustained resonance does something to attention. It pulls you inward. Percussion and rhythm. The damru, frame drums, shamanic drums, taiko, clapsticks. What do they share? Rhythm. Unlike wind instruments or bells, these instruments don't rely on melody. They rely on repetition, a steady beat, a pulse, one that the body naturally wants to flow. Across India, Siberia, Native America, Africa, Japan, and Australia, sacred percussions weren't created simply to make music. It was used to accompany prayer, guide ceremonies, bringing communities together, support healing rituals, and help people enter deep focused or trance like state. Today, neuroscience calls one part of this phenomena rhythmic entertainment, our tendency to synchronize with a repeating beat. When you compare these traditions side by side, something remarkable appears. These sacred instruments, they all share the same qualities. Not complexity or performance, simplicity and repetition. And modern neuroscience has now started explaining why. A peer-reviewed study published in Scientific Reports, Nature 2026, tested how rhythmic drumming affects brain activity. Using EEG recordings, researchers found that at around 4 beats per second, participants showed consistent shift in brainwave patterns associated with altered state of consciousness. 4 beats per second. That's it. But what does it actually mean? Your brain is made of billions of neurons. When they communicate, they create tiny electrical pulses. When we measure those patterns, we find the brain doesn't work at one constant speed. It works in rhythm. These rhythms are measured in hertz, how many cycles per second. Further, these hertz are categorized in four states: calm, quietly aware, daydreaming, gentle focus comes in alpha state. Deep meditation, creativity, dreamlike insight, the place where memory and emotion surface, that's theta state. Deep, dreamless sleep, the deepest rest, that comes in the delta state. Theta is the state most of us never reach because we live in beta permanently. And slow, repetitive sounds like drums can gently guide the brain from beta into theta. This is why rhythm has been used in ceremonies for thousands of years, not for entertainment, as a way to shift inner state of awareness. Ancient cultures might not have called it neuroscience, but they spent thousands of years to understand one thing. What is it that made humans feel more calmer, more connected, and more focused? And they all found the same answer. Theta is your state. It's a state your brain goes into when you are deeply relaxed, imagining things, meditating, or just about to fall asleep. In this state, your mind becomes calm, creative, and more focused on what's happening inside than outside. Every major creative tradition developed its own technology for getting there, and every shamanic tradition used the drum. It doesn't have to be a drum. It can be a basic ritual just as walking, breathing practice, meditating, japa, something that signals to your brain it's time to go deeper because every civilization discovered one. And the question is, have you found yours?